In 2024, I watched as my dream broke into a million pieces and faded away right in front of my eyes. I was desperate, depressed, anxious, and lost. I was able to pull myself out of the never ending self pity spiral, and although I still don't know what the future holds for me or what I'm going to do with my life, I'm in a much better mental state than I was before. I often felt alone in my struggles, believing that everyone else lived perfect lives whenever I see them post on social media. But when I shared a bit of my story on Instagram, it resonated with a lot of people. It encouraged me to know that many others have the same feelings, and I was not alone. And people commented that they felt more encouraged knowing that they weren't alone either. It was a really powerful moment. So, I want to share with you in more detail my storyboarding journey, how I came to love it, my dreams and ambitions, the struggles I faced, and the challenges along the way. Let's start from the beginning. I discovered my love for storyboarding during the pandemic. I always wanted to try storyboarding from the moment I heard it was a thing at orientation, but I never actually tried to learn it. I thought I'll give it a shot when the time comes. Then, when I went to the first virtual CTN and went to a panel where a Disney storyboard artist pitched the sequence they boarded on Once Upon a Snowman, it was literally the best thing I saw that year. It was at that moment I decided I need to learn how to do that myself. Because the school I went to, Art Center, wouldn't let me take storyboarding classes unless I took the prerequisite classes. I went to an online school called Schoolism and took an intro to storyboarding class there. It was a recorded video lecture with no feedback. Not the best way to learn, but I enjoyed it a lot. I wasn't good. In fact, my first couple of attempts at storyboarding were so terrible that if I had known it back then, I probably would have given it up right then and there. But I didn't know any better and was just enjoying the entire thing. I was weirdly proud of a really terrible piece I did, so much so that I used it to apply for Disney and Pixar internships in 2021. Of course, I didn't get in, but I didn't stop there. I took all sorts of classes outside of Art Center and cranked out one sequence after another, story after story, and learned in the process. I applied again the following year with a much better portfolio and a lot more hope. I improved a lot and expected better results, but things didn't go according to my plan. I wasn't even rejected like last time. I was simply ghosted. I found out about my automatic rejection way later when people who got in announced it on Instagram. That was when I knew I didn't make it again. I was super sad and shared the news with my mom, hoping to get some kind of comfort from her encouragement. I was looking for stuff like, "You tried really hard and I'm very proud of you," or "You're already very good, don't worry about what other thinks of you." But instead, I got, "Are you sure that you're cut out for this kind of a job? Maybe you're just not as creative. You should look for other career paths so you don't have to compete against other people's strength or their weakness." And that sent me into a deeper gloom. I was depressed for weeks. I didn't give up though. Since I was still in school and I still qualified for internships the following year, I took more classes, worked on my skills so hard that I got severe hand injuries. Then something wonderful happened the third time I applied. I got an interview with Pixar. I was so scared because everybody else I knew who applied for the same position had been rejected. I was anxiously waiting for a reply while dreading one at the same time. I kept telling myself, no news is good news. But when I finally got the news, it was the best news. I still remember exactly where I was when I read the email requesting for an interview. I was going back to my apartment after a gouache class, holding a bunch of drawing supplies and paints, awkwardly walking, when I felt a buzz on my phone. I glanced at the title of the email and my heart stopped. I quickly opened it and speed read through everything. I looked for keywords of rejection like unfortunately, or we regret to inform you, or we decide to move on, and so on. But I found nothing like that. Then I read the email from the beginning again, slowly this time. It was asking for my availability so an interview could be scheduled. I was so happy. I rushed back to tell my roommate, and she was so happy for me. I did the interview, and right before my birthday, I was accepted as one of the six story interns that summer. It was the best birthday gift ever. I drove to San Francisco in the beginning of June and started the most magical 3 months of my life. I met so many wonderful people and learned so much about storytelling and storyboarding under the guidance of super talented and awesome instructors and mentors. I was boarding, I was drawing, and I was happy. And my internship ended. The thing is, they told us there was no possible way we could be kept at Pixar after our internship because things weren't looking too well at the studio. There was a massive layoff right before our internship started. I was kind of expecting them to call the internship off at any minute. Knowing all of that, I still hoped that maybe against all odds, I was able to prove myself to be good enough. Then the last day came and went. I realized that was it, and I was sad. But I wished it had stopped there. Through word of mouth, I heard that the exact same thing happened the year before. They told last year's interns that no one would be hired. But as someone was packing to go back home, they got a job offer, and that kept my hopes up. Throughout packing, driving back to LA, settling back in my old apartment, throughout everything, I was half expecting a miracle to happen. Well, as you can see, there was no miracles. I got a teaching gig at an after school art studio, teaching little kids drawing and sculpting. I applied to all sorts of openings, but either got ghosted or rejected. I was on OPT and I didn't have much time left. For those of you who don't know what OPT is, it's essentially a 1 to 3 year visa free work permit that allows you to say, I am legally allowed to work here without visa sponsorship on your job applications. My degree only gave me 1 year of OPT, so I had to find a company that was willing to sponsor my visa within that year, or I would have to leave the country, and I was running out of time. Then I got an interview from Art Center. It was a student life coordinator position. I would be assisting with clubs, orientation, and all of that. Not art related, but I had worked with my supervisor to be before, and I liked them a lot. It would be a nice income source, though not much, and I was able to stay in the States while looking for other jobs. I was fully prepared to accept the job if it was offered to me, and I was rejected because of visa issues. Due to the nature of OPT, I can only work jobs that are related to my degree, and student life coordinator has nothing to do with art and design. So, yeah. Well, the good news was on the same day I was rejected by Art Center, I got accepted by DreamWorks. I applied and interviewed for the story intern position for the spring cohort and got in. I got the phone call from the recruiter and was super excited. Back then, as far as I know, DreamWorks was the only major studio left in LA that still sponsored visas. And I might just be kept on after my internship ends. My internship came and went. I was put on a super cute feature project as a story intern. I worked with a group of super talented storyboard artists, and I started out with small fixes here and there, doing revisionist work. But then later, I was assigned bigger sequences of my own, and I thought I was doing pretty good. Before my internship officially ended, I was promoted to a trainee, which meant better pay, though still not as much as a regular storyboard artist, but way better than an intern. And it means a full time job. The only thing was, this trainee program had an end date, and that end date just happened to be the end date of my OPT. So I was like, really? Like, really? I kept asking to see if I could be kept on after my trainee period ends. and the answers I got weren't promising. There weren't any new projects, and it turned out that they had stopped sponsoring visas after all, even after I offered to be kept as a trainee on a lower pay while doing storyboard artist work. I networked my ass off within DreamWorks, poking here and there to see if there were any other projects that needed storyboard help. No one did. There were way too many storyboard artists already at the studio and not enough projects. I also looked for work elsewhere, anything that could sponsor a visa for me so I wouldn't be deported. But that went nowhere. Still, I wouldn't let go of my hopes completely, for another stupid reason. The exact same thing as Pixar. There had been another story intern 1 year before me. They were kept on as a trainee after their internship ended. And although there was no opening at the time of their trainee period, a miracle happened. A new project opened up, and they were kept on. And yeah, stupid as I was, I hoped, against all odds, to the last minute. Even when I was driving my car away from LA back to Canada, I still kept my hopes up. Needless to say, if miracles did happen, I wouldn't be here right now. I remember one day I was driving from DreamWorks back to where I lived after work, and I got off the freeway, came across the street I had passed so many times, on foot, driving, or on buses, all the way from when I was still a student until then. And I felt like I was going home for the first time since coming to America. Before that moment, whenever I referred to the apartment I rented with my roommate, to friends, family, or even to myself, I always avoided using the word home because it was not my home. Yeah, I lived there, but it was only for the time being. I knew my life was too unstable and I didn't want to commit until I felt certain that I could call someplace home. At that moment, though, before that red light, looking at the sign that said the name of the street, I felt like I was going home, even more of a home than Canada has ever been to me. Sure, all my family is in Canada, but when I went there as a kid, I didn't really have a choice. But this home in Pasadena was my choice. I was living my dream, doing what I loved. I fought really hard for it. It was home, and I left. I didn't really want to leave. I was afraid if I left, I would just become a bunch of pixels on recruiter screens instead of a living person. And speaking from past experiences, I'm not too good at maintaining friendships or relationships over long distances. If I left, I would be cut off from the heart of the industry and from most of my friends, from the life I built, from my dreams. Sadly to say, I was proven correct. And I was very, very, very sad. I kept applying for jobs in Canada, in Europe, in States, everywhere. It went nowhere. I freelanced briefly for DreamWorks on the same project, but that was the best I could get. You would assume that after two internships at two major studios, I would be more competitive. Not the case. I gradually eased into melancholy. I didn't want to see therapists or to be diagnosed because I wasn't sure how my Asian parents would take it. And I didn't want to put more mental pressure on my already fried brain. So I relied on sheer self will, trying all sorts of things to cheer myself up. I got another teaching gig nearby, still teaching little kids. I applied to all sorts of jobs, not just storyboarding anymore. I was applying to assistant jobs at community centers, universities, graphic design jobs, background painting jobs. Anything that I thought I could remotely do, I tried. And it went nowhere. I was still fighting hard to go back to the States, to LA, to Burbank, to chase my dream. But every job application asked if I needed visa sponsorship, and clicking yes to that question was the equivalent of a death sentence. I received so many rejections within days of my application. Clearly, it was automatic rejections. But most often, I was just ghosted, which I actually learned to appreciate. Rejection is a wound. It reminds me once again what a failure I was, But being ghosted is just being ignored. That's better than putting salt on my wounds. So, studios, if you're watching, just ghost me for future applications. It's better for my mental health. Oftentimes, I wondered, do I really suck that bad that I can't find work anywhere? Most people were unemployed, sure, but it's not like everyone was. And a lot of my friends are employed and they are at the same seniority level as me. I thought they must be better than me and kept comparing myself to every single artist I saw out there. Whenever I saw a beautiful piece of work, I hated myself for not being able to produce the same level of work. And when my posts don't get as much attention as someone else's, I told myself it was because I sucked. I kept telling myself I wasn't hired because I wasn't good enough. No one liked my work because I wasn't good enough. And my life sucked because I wasn't good enough. I started hating the fact that I did these two amazing internships because I still didn't get anywhere. And I felt like a failure, a disgrace, a bruise on the reputation of these two internships because I still sucked so bad after completing them. My resume screamed, only good enough for internships. And no one wants to hire this sucker for actual jobs. I lost part of myself when I left LA. I was doubting the future of this industry too. With the development of AI, streaming platforms, and short form videos, movies aren't making as much money as they used to, and most adults don't have a habit of watching animated movies. Everyone complained about how studios are making sequels after sequels, prequels after prequels, but not everyone supports originals by going to movie theaters. A lot of people just wait a few months and watch them on Netflix, Disney Plus, Apple TV, or whatever. If this industry were booming, then I could get a job at Starbucks or something while working on my portfolio, aiming to eventually get back into the animation industry. A lot of people broke in like that. But if the whole industry is dying, then what's the point? I suddenly lost my purpose in life. I desperately needed to get my life together, find a direction, a purpose, anything. But I felt so lost and lonely. I didn't know what to do. I got so depressed to a point where I believed I actually had depression and wanted to see a therapist. It was at the end of 2024. I had been crying myself to sleep almost every night since my return to Canada, hoping that the turn of the year would bring me some luck. But what really helped me was not the turn of the year, it was a book. I was listening to Pride and Prejudice audiobooks, and one line caught my ears. I'm gonna assume everyone has read it or at least heard what happens in the story. So it was when Lizzie was supposed to see the lakes with her aunt and uncle, but their trip was forced to change. And Elizabeth was excessively disappointed. She had set her heart on seeing the lakes, and still thought there might have been time enough. But it was her business to be satisfied, and certainly her temper to be happy. And all was soon right again. Lizzie was disappointed, but because she wanted to be satisfied and happy, she was able to be, and everything was all right again. That night, I made a New Year's resolution. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to stop crying every night and lamenting over my lost dream and the life I could have had if everything had gone my way. This time, a miracle did happen. I didn't feel like crying the following night, and I've been relatively calm and at peace with myself ever since. Yes, I'm still very salty about the whole leaving LA business, and felt like a failure and a loser, and as lost as ever. But I know if I set my heart on being happy, on being satisfied, I will be alright. I've been trying to branch out from just doing animation and turn my art and skills into some kind of business. I started a polymer clay and air dry clay Etsy shop and soon realized it hurts my hand too much, even more than drawing, so I converted it into an illustration and print shop. I always wanted to teach storyboarding at universities or online schools. Finally, I got tired of waiting to be asked, so I started teaching storyboarding on my own. I'm eternally grateful to my friend who recommended me for a small freelance gig, and I'm now happily storyboarding for an awesome short film. I started this YouTube channel because I wanted to document my art journey and share my struggles in hopes that I could help people who are struggling with the same things. I picked up pottery again after so long, and I relearned wheel throwing. I'm really loving it right now. There is still so much I don't know, so much anxiety and uncertainty. I don't have my life figured out, but I am actively trying. I hope my story resonated with you on some level. If you're in the same boat and feel comfortable sharing, please share your journey. I'm sure your words will tell someone else that they're not alone in their struggles either. I'm still figuring out what kinds of content I want to make for this channel, what products I want to make for my shop, and what my art style is, and so much more. But whatever I do, I want it to be hinged on one concept, making people feel that they're not alone, and that the world is not such a terrible place after all. I used to just look at someone's finished piece of art, and I believed they did it effortlessly. Their success came super easy to them, and they were just born that way. But no, everyone must have struggled in their own way. It's just that not many people are comfortable sharing. I want to share my process and show the world that it's okay to make mistakes, to detour, to struggle, and to fail. And that marks the end of today's story time. Thank you so much for watching. Please join me on this journey of self discovery. Remember to comment, like, and subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any videos. Let me know below if you have any questions or if there are certain topics you want me to talk about. Help me figure out what this channel is all about. And hopefully, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!